So the reason I wanted to test these 50 volt 0.47 Elna caps is just more out of curiosity, okay? And also too, you know, they're directly in the audio path. They're the first caps I decided to pull, and I was curious more than anything what their current characteristics, overall health is against the modern replacements I just installed, which are some Nishikon audio grade caps. Now, I don't have the specs on these old ones, but the specs on these, according to the data sheet, on these caps here, on these replacements, and in regard to our tan delta, our tangent loss angle or dissipation factor, which we know is closely related to our ESR, is right about 0.12. And as you saw, even the old caps here were well within tolerance. They were well below the maximum value there. And also too, in regard to transistors, in this case, these 4 transistors here are 2S 726s, or 2SA 726s, excuse me, and they are known to be problematic. So even if these ones test fine, you know, I'm going to go ahead and just replace them. I'm going to do this because I'm already in the mode. Okay, and just like that, everything I set out to do has been completed. As mentioned previously, I wanted to get in here and recap the power supply, main amp, and driver sections of this receiver, and that I did. I also replaced some bad Zener diodes, got rid of the 2SA 726 PMP transistors that I mentioned previously are known to be problematic. So I replaced those with some KSA 992s. So all that is wrapped up. Also, if you recall, this unit initially came in with some very, very dirty controls, pots and switches, which were causing signal loss. You know, signal was cutting in and out, a lot of static, you know, the typical stuff. So all the controls have been thoroughly flush cleaned and re-lubricated. So that's all been resolved as well. So unless anything presents itself during final testing, you know, we'll just kind of have to cross that bridge at that time. Hopefully everything is okay. So let me go ahead and get some loose circuit boards on the back side that are just kind of dangling there. Let me get those all reinstalled, get this thing buttoned up good enough for testing, and then I will go into that. There will probably be some basic electrical adjustments and what have you. So again, I will cover as much as I can, but otherwise this thing is almost ready to get back home to its human. So again, let's go ahead and move into testing. Okay, so as you can see, everything is pretty much back together. Before I continue with testing, I just wanted to take a quick look at our DC balance. And as you can see, I have these 2 multimeters hooked up to the speaker terminals there. And if we pan over to the left, we can see we have a few millivolts bouncing around on this meter here. And you know, that's perfectly fine. Let's move on over to the right. Again, we have a few millivolts or so bouncing around. Perfectly fine. Even if it was a little higher than that, that would be no big deal whatsoever. And in a perfect world, yeah, it would be nice to see 0, but that's very rarely the case. There's always going to be a few millivolts or so bouncing around, and oftentimes these adjustments here, these VRs, are really super touchy, which is the case with these two. This is a VR2 here, which adjusts the right side. VR1 here adjusts the left side, and again, very touchy. If I was to breathe on them a little too hard, they would bounce all over the place. So anyways, I did the best I could, got these readings down as low as I could, and again, a few millivolts is just fine. So let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so on to biasing. According to the service manual, we want to be at 19 milliamps plus or minus 1 milliamp, and I'm gonna just zoom on over here to the DMM, and as you can see, I'm hovering right about 19.28 something, 29 something, whatever. It bounces around a bit, as you can see. Not a big deal, but I'm within spec on this channel here. When I first clipped on to check the reading, it was originally right about 13 milliamps, so a bit low, obviously. So I'm adjusted, where I need to be adjusted, and I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between channels, readjusting here and there, because it will fluctuate a little bit. One thing, if you're going to do this adjustment, just be sure that you give the receiver time to warm up, 10, 20 or more minutes, whatever. Just turn it on, let the temperature of components settle and so forth, and everything stabilize. So let me go ahead and zoom on over to the driver board here so I can show you what VRs you're going to want to use for adjustment. So VR4 and VR3 over here are the two trimmer pots here that you want to use to adjust the bias. And now I'm going to just I'm going to hand hold the tripod and just kind of hover over the receiver here and show you the test points. Okay, so pardon the movement, I'm just hand holding the tripod, but you can see this this quad of fuses here. Fuse number 1 and fuse number 2 are your two test points. You do want to acknowledge polarity. As you can see, I have the positive probe here, negative probe here. This information is provided in the service manual, but just keep that in mind. And otherwise, that is about it. I'm going to work off camera on just kind of going back and forth between the adjustments I showed you, and just kind of get everything stabilized a little bit more. Again, there's a little bouncing around here and there, and you just got to kind of tweak things a little bit. But for the most part, that's about it. So let me go ahead and move on. Okay, let's check the output. I'm feeding in a 1 kilohertz tone into this receiver here, of course. And over here I have an AC voltmeter hooked up to the speaker outs, as well as the scope probes, and of course the receiver is terminating into an 8 ohm dummy load. Let me pan over here to the scope, and we'll give this amp some volume here and bring it up into clipping. Okay, let me bring it back down there. In fact, let me okay. All right, that's looking okay. And while I have this kicked up here, let me just bring this down on top of the other signal here, the other channel. And you can see there is a little bit of a difference between the two channels, if I can lay this on top of the other one. But anyways, you may be able to see there's a little bit of difference in symmetry. The channels are tracking pretty close, but again, a little bit of a difference. Very slight, nothing I'm going to worry about. So anyways, let me go ahead and move back over here to the voltmeter. And as you can see, we're at 16.97 volts, which after the math is done and so forth, that coincides with what we had on the scope there. And if we square that 16.97 volts and then divide it by our 8 ohm dummy load, that gives us a 35.99 watts, which is good considering this is a 32 watt per channel receiver. And considering the work that I've performed within this unit, I think we're doing pretty good. Other than that, what I'm going to do next is go into a bit of an audio test and see how we're doing. And then once I get that all wrapped up, I'm going to close this up, detail it a bit, and run it in the shop for a few days or so, stress test it and all that before I return it back to its human. Okay, so otherwise, let's go ahead and move forward. Okay, so let's get to some audio testing. I'm going to tune through the dial just briefly. I don't have an antenna hooked up to this thing. I don't receive stations real well where I'm located, but you'll get the point. I'm not going to stay on any station too long because of copyright issues, and then after that, I will follow up with a CD that I have piped into this receiver with some YouTube safe music as far as you know, from their library, so no copyright issues, whatever. So let's go ahead and get to it anyways. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn on some YouTube safe music. Okay, so there you have it. It actually sounds pretty good. The only other thing I need to do is I need to relamp this receiver here. All the lamps are out. So I'm going to order the lamps for it, and like I said, do a little cosmetic detailing, and it'll be on its way back home. Peace, love, rock and roll, and of course, vintage audio.